All right. Excuse me. Welcome back, everybody. We are live very early today because my football schedule takes precedence yet again. Playoff football, man. Gotta support the team. So we are live at freaking.
Here we are, just making allowances for Ben again.
4:30. Look, if you guys had other shit come up, we would obviously make allowances for you as well.
I know, I'm teasing.
But yeah, no. Chiefs decided they wanted to, or the networks, the TV networks decided they wanted to put the Chiefs game on at freaking 6:15 p.m. on a Sunday. It's just such an odd time for football to go. The NFC game was at like 2 o'clock today, so I don't know what they were thinking, but it is what it is. And here we are. So,
do we know the score of that game, by the way? I have not
let
looked
me
at
look
that
real
game
fast.
at all.
I don't know off the top of my head. I can pull it. Let me look on my phone here real quick. Take 2 seconds.
I was told that the Bucks got off to an early deficit.
It is 20-3 right now with 19 seconds left in the first half. So the Rams are up.
Oh, Rams beating that ass, huh?
They are beating that ass right now.
20-3?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Big ol' yikes.
Not
Anyway.
great for the old Tampa Bay Toms.
Not looking super good for Tom Brady right now, but I'm good with that because
Turkey Tom.
friggin' F Tom Brady.
Well, I'm not good with it because I have a strict rule that I never bet against Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Oof.
I never do it.
I mean,
burned me
there's
too many
still-
times in the past, and I'm not going to do it anymore.
There's still a whole half of football left, so.
And that man made me a lot of money last year during the playoffs, so I guess it could be a wash. Well, it won't be a wash, but he's due for a loss, I suppose.
I don't know. The playoffs have been weird. All the top seeds so far for the divisionals have lost. So,
Dude, the Packers last night?
Packers last night lost. What a game that was.
Wrong about that.
Yeah, but their special teams were the reason that they lost.
I didn't watch a single second of it.
I had it on off to the side, but no, not Bills Mafia, Chiefs Kingdom. Anyways, but anyway,
Bills Mafia combo. Let's go Bills this afternoon. I'm sorry, Ben. It's nothing to do with you. I literally told Kristen earlier today, I hope the Chiefs lose, but it has nothing to do with Ben.
This is just the money talking.
It's just the money. It's just the money. It's just business, baby. It's just the money, baby. Okay.
I hate it so much. All right. Moving past.
I was busy being read last night during that Packers game by a medium, which we'll probably get into a little bit later.
But we are gonna move past football talk for right now and get into some of the craziness that has happened this past week. So,
can we address Ham eating her pizza right now, which I think is so fucking fantastic?
Yeah, she's
that's
doing a
so
little happy
beautiful.
dance while she's eating.
What a great podcast look. I'm jealous.
Can't help
that
it.
Ham joins us for like 2 months now, and she's eating pizza live on the stream, and I've never been able to do that.
I think I ate live on
Jealousy.
stream.
Why not?
One time because I had a very busy day and I hadn't had dinner yet, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna eat real fast while we do the beginning of this, and then we're gonna move on."
Yeah, I could obviously eat pizza on the stream. I've never done it. You beat me to the punch, if you will.
Yeah. So this week there's some
I'm professional, if anything.
true.
Professional if I've ever seen it, that's for sure.
It's true. So this week there has been some kind of like weird craziness going on with M&M's doing what they're doing, Biden just still being just lost in the sauce while he's talking. Britain is actually doing better with COVID regulations and stuff than we are right now. But before we get into any of that, we're going to take a turn down to the southern United States like we do almost every week. And we're going to talk about Florida. And this week, our Florida man is a guy who fought off a friggin' black bear that tried to yoink his dogs. And
He's a goddamn hero, is what he is.
Dude is crazy. Watch this guy. Like, look at this.
It's rare that we get to praise the people of Florida.
Can we make that full screen? Is that possible?
I have no idea.
Damn. Can you click on it? Maybe click on it and see if it.
It's Instagram on desktop, so it's weird.
Word, 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 word. Okay, so anyway, so look at this. This bear just freaking. I don't know how to. I don't even know how to zoom in on freaking Windows. But anyways,
Wait, can you guys hear that?
I can't hear it, but the
no,
listeners might be able to.
not
The
completely sure.
audio is the
Oh,
best part too.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Like, get out of here! Get out of here!
Yeah, I know. He's like
man
literally
takes-
fighting off the bear.
Yeah, so like if you look, pause it right there if you can. Okay, so the bear just straight like knocks down. The dude has a doggy door up because he's got two small dogs, and the bear is just like, you know what? I'm gonna bust into this this dude's friggin' like screened in porch because those little dogs look kind of tasty, and I'm gonna go see what's up. So man, the bear breaks down the little plastic doggy door, and obviously the little dogs are like basically like Satan's minions. So they tried to like run up on the bear, and my man gets his little dogs out the way and just pushes this bear pretty much out of his house, and then just throws the porch swing in front of the door like, no, fuck you, bear, stay out.
He literally looks like an offensive lineman going fucking nosedive tackle on a bear.
Yeah,
On a
it's
bear.
crazy.
Like the balls that it takes to fucking just go toe to toe with a bear. Like, I love my dog, don't get me wrong, and I would like to say that I would do the same thing, but I don't know that I would just straight up square up and go nose to nose with a fucking bear.
The bear like that. So black bears aren't like that. Looks like a young one, obviously, a younger black bear. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's
it's a
not huge.
baby
I wouldn't
bear.
say it's not a baby. I wouldn't say it's a baby. It's probably 1 to 2 years old, in that range.
Well, let's just be real. If it was a full-size black bear, that man would not be living to tell this
I
tale.
don't know. It depends. Like, so bears are weird. There's like, and I've seen this before. There's certain ways you're supposed to act with certain bears. And I want to say that black bears are the ones that you're kind of supposed to like not necessarily square up to, but at least make yourself bigger and make a lot of noise because they're not really gonna fight you that much, or they're gonna run off and get scared because they're like the smaller of the bears. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but that dude's a hero for saving his dogs, and now he has a badass story to tell everybody when he goes to the bar.
No shit. Imagine being that guy and walking into the bar and being like, guess what the fuck happened tonight, fellas? Like, nobody's going to believe you. And then you pull up that fucking video and they're
Yeah,
like,
it's just let me pull up my ring
Jesus
camera
Christ,
video.
you really did fucking go nose to nose with the goddamn bear.
Yep, just wham.
Just to save your little fucking dogs. That's pretty.
I don't know, dude. I'd almost fight a bear if a bear came after Loki. Well, first of all, Loki's kind of a he would probably try and fucking do something because he's an idiot. But I'd punch a bear in the fucking head. I'd at least try. I might get fucked up for it, but at least Loki would be all right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a tough call to make. I don't, like I said, I'd like to think that I would do the same thing in that situation, but I have no fucking idea.
For bear, if it I see there you go, squash with the science. For bears, if it is black, fight back. If
There's
it's
squash.
brown, lie down. See, there you go. See, that's what I thought. I knew it was something like that. Black bears you can square up with because they're like little scaredy boys. But if it's a brown bear or a polar bear, I would just if it's a polar bear, you're fucked.
My train of thought is if I see a bear, don't fuck with it and be as still as you possibly can and try to avoid conflict at all costs. But if he comes bum rushing at your pups, I don't, what else are you supposed to do, I guess?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, that dude's cool. So nothing like I wouldn't say it's not crazy because it's pretty crazy, typical Florida stuff, but not like criminal crazy coming out of Florida this week. More like this
No.
guy's a hero crazy.
Like I said earlier, it's rare that we get to praise the people of Florida. So it's
True.
nice to be able to give a Florida man a shout out and being like, hey, good work, man.
Good work,
Balls
guy.
of steel there.
You did it. You really
Florida
did
putting
it.
out some good content this week.
Let's go, Florida. Thank you.
Proud of Florida.
I'm gonna take a line from Tosh.0 and be like, and for that, we thank you.
And for that, we thank you.
Thank you, Florida. All right, so moving right along to this fucking headassery. And Ham, if you can, maybe pull up the article about M&M's being more inclusive or whatever. It should be one of the top hits on there. But this week, M&M and the Mars company that makes M&M's just decided. No, you can just Google search it real fast. It should be the first thing that like pops up on a Google search. Yeah, they just decided that it'd be a good idea to make M&Ms, all the little M&M characters, more inclusive. So my first reaction to this when I saw it, because I got it from TikTok, I was just like, "Oh, what the fuck?"
It's about time. Was my first reaction. Those goddamn M&M characters and their misogynistic company, fucking
Yeah, perfect. This
homophobes.
is the exact article.
How do we not have some M&M representation for the LBGTQ plus
Ad block,
community?
right?
Sorry.
No, you're good.
There we go.
So look, so it at the outset right here, when you first look at it, when I first looked at it, I couldn't see anything different, and then you kind of start looking a little bit more. So the brown M&M, they changed her heels from being fucking stilettos and everything like that to more like I don't know what you would call that. They're blocky on the back. And then they
Kitten heels. That's what they're called.
yeah, there you go. This is why we have a woman's perspective and voice on the podcast now, because I don't know shit like that. And then they took the green M&M and just changed her shoes completely, because I'm pretty sure she wore like the same kind of heels for like the longest time, and now she's just
She wore boots.
oh, that's right, she was wearing go-go boots.
Go-go boots.
So now she's wearing sneakers. We're like, okay, whatever. She's like, I guess a millennial ass fucking M&M now.
My girl got a new pair of shoes. Fucking
yeah,
leave her alone, dude.
like
She's
whatever.
shopping.
And then apparently the orange M&M is gonna be more outspoken about his friggin' anxiety. And they came out and said all this other shit, like the M&Ms aren't gonna lose like their witty fucking like shit and their like comedic appeal and blah blah blah. But my thing is like, why did we have to change them anyway? Like, who the fuck was offended by M&Ms in the first place? And Alex and I talked about this, and he's like, "Well, it's not about anybody being offended. It's about fuck. It's about selling. It's about them marketing this shit so that it looks good and that they're in the freaking woke media and woke culture's fucking good graces, and so everybody will continue to buy M&Ms." But I'm like, why waste time and money to do this? Because who the fuck cares? I don't give a shit.
It was just like the Dr. Seuss shit, and I don't even remember what was happening during the Dr. Seuss shit also with another company, but it's marketing, dude. It's not trying to make you feel better about buying M&Ms or trying to make M&Ms more inclusive. It's how can we find a way to drive sales and get the M&M brand name in popular news.
Yeah.
To where whatever article we're looking at right now is writing a fucking entire article piece on inclusiveness in M&Ms, which is fucking bonkers.
Well,
it's so
I mean,
stupid to begin with.
True, but they had to have had a focus group for this, because I went through multiple marketing classes, and they usually focus group this shit. So who in whatever focus group that they pulled together was like, yeah, I don't think M&Ms are very inclusive. Like, what, dude? It's fucking candy. Why do you need to feel like you have fucking representation on candy? Like, why? Like, who is out there identifying and be like, yeah, I like M&Ms because they have all this inclusivity, and I fucking associate myself with the goddamn like green M&M. Like, no, not one person has said that ever. I just look at M&Ms. I'm like, yeah, I feel like eating some M&Ms today. Maybe the peanut ones. I don't care.
I'm just wondering when we're gonna get our first
I
redheaded
like the pretzel
M&M.
ones.
What, Alex?
I just want to know when we're gonna get our first redheaded M&M. Honestly,
The whole M&M is red. There's your representation.
they don't have any hair. That's
Wha-
fucking bullshit.
Okay,
These
guys,
fucking hairists,
you
dude.
heard.
I'm telling you.
You heard it here first. Alex is still not feeling included in M&Ms because the M&Ms are hairless. So bald people,
Or-
you're represented by M&Ms.
Or in this whole target group in general, where we're making transgendered individuals faces of the brand, which is fine. That's all great. When do I get a redheaded M&M? That's what I want to fucking know. When do I get a fucking redheaded M&M? Because I'm feeling left out, and I don't know that I will ever buy an M&M again, because I don't see any of those M&Ms with red hair and a red beard. And quite honestly, I'm offended. Because do they think redheads can't drive marketing? Is there something so wrong with redheads to where we
Isn't there
can't
like
make them
a
the face of the
actual
brand?
like Isn't
What?
there like an actual like study shown that people react negative? Like, I think it was on the okay. There's something called the Harvard implicit bias test, which is really interesting. I don't know if you guys can even hear me because my internet connection sucks,
I
but
can hear you fine.
okay, cool. But it's really interesting. It's kind of like it's supposed to kind of pinpoint your implicit bias, your underlying biases based on muscle reactions. Like you have two pictures of something and then two objects
Oh
that
yeah,
you
yeah,
associate.
yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yep.
You
Yep.
can do it
Yep.
online. It's super interesting. And I'm pretty sure if I'm not, yeah, gingerphobia. I think that's actual, like, that's a real thing. And I think it's stupid. Just as racism as a whole is stupid,
Yeah.
but like, and people, not like, I don't know if gingers is a race, but you know what I mean? Like people like having biases based on looks is stupid to me anyways. But yeah, like people actually have adverse reactions towards, and I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I will
then
never
when do we
understand it.
get- When do we get our fucking justice, huh?
Dude, you
When do
did.
we
You
get
got your
our?
justice when Apple included all the ginger emotes.
Oh, thanks a lot, Apple. We're feeling so goddamn included these days. And all this is obvious. I'm obviously doing a bit here, but it's so stupid. Like
Yeah,
it's so fucking
dumb.
stupid. Like I don't even know how to put into words how just blatantly ridiculous it all is. It's just pandering is all
really
it is.
It's just pandering to drive sales. It's the same as when all of those companies put up the pride flag during Pride Month
Yep.
because they're like, "Oh, we stand with you. Look at all of our look at us. We changed our logos to the pride flag, and now here's all this pride merch. Like, we stand with you, LGBTQ community." And then literally the next month they're like, "Nah, who?" Like,
My dad
Whatever.
just texted me and said M&Ms are for us old fat / bald guys.
I was just gonna say, Nancy said that Jim Brummel is representing, and I feel like Jim Brummel is like the embodiment of the red M&M. He's round and bald and kind of angry sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an accurate representation, I think.
So
I think he would agree with that too.
Chad is telling you to lower your gain, Ham.
I did.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Or maybe you just turn your volume down, Combo, and leave Ham alone.
Yeah, that's right, Combo. Just relax.
I'll turn it all the way
okay?
down. Why is my
No, I don't know.
mic so loud?
I don't know. Anyways, yeah, it's the big dumb. I just like lost about 37 brain cells when I friggin' saw that. Ham, is there a way for you to pull up the TikTok on that I sent y'all earlier this week on your PC?
Oh, dude,
or
that
not?
was
Because it was freaking hilarious.
that was very funny. I got good chuckles out of that.
There's not. All right, I might be able to
can
do it because I can go in the text and like it and then pull up TikTok on my PC. Combo, I know gain and volume are two different things. Trust me, I've been doing this long enough that I know. Let me
Combo.
let
Trust
me go
him.
back and like both those TikToks because I do want to show you guys those because it was very funny. I think this was the first one. Connect. Yeah, here we go. All right. Let me pull this up real fast and I'll just drag it over. You guys probably aren't going to be able to hear it because I'm just going to drag it down over the Zoom overlay, but chat should be able to hear it. Let me see if I can pull it up because it was. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. All right, here we go, guys. So this is how I first found out about it. Hopefully this works. It should be fine though.
Yes, man. Finally. This is such good news, man. I can't wait. I gotta call somebody. Mom, did you hear? M&Ms are about to be more inclusive. Yes, I know you still don't have affordable health care and you live paycheck to paycheck, and because of inflation, you'll never be able to buy a home even at 65. Get over yourself. The candy is no longer racist. Haha, yes.
So that's That's the first. That's the first thing I sent them this week was that's like this is what we put our time and energy into was being like yes M&Ms are now more inclusive, but like fuck that dude's mom apparently because she can't fucking afford to live at 65. Like, there's much better things we could be devoting our time and money to, and here we are with fucking
Nah, dude, the world is
M&Ms.
saved now. The world is completely saved because M&Ms are inclusive to represent all groups and all people of walks of life, except fucking redheads. So Eminem, you and I still have a beef. All right, I want the red M&M to come to my house and issue a public apology on Instagram Live.
I want the red M&M to come on the podcast.
Yes, yes,
Um,
please. If we could
combo-
have the red M&M come on the podcast, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Combo, we'll probably talk about that at the end. I haven't looked at anything about that so far this week, but we'll talk about it at the end. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is our
I'll look at it now while
Okay.
you guys are talking.
thanks. Our wonderful president. One of these TikToks is a very funny TikTok that I laughed my ass off about for a solid 5 minutes. And then the other one is a little bit more serious, and we'll get into it after I show it. But I'm gonna pull it up. I might just oops, you know what? Maybe I'll just share my screen. Hold on, that might be a better idea because then you guys should be able to hear it. So give me 1 second to find them. Here we go.
Percent of the time,
All right.
Yes, if my mother would dress up as a red M&M and come on the podcast, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, Nancy.
Let's
for
go,
your public
Nancy.
service.
Okay, yeah, here we go. So this might work. I wonder if this is gonna. Oh, it's not gonna. No, never mind. It's not gonna capture it. Just kidding. All right, I'm just gonna drag it down. So this is the first one. This is the funny one that I want to talk about because this is just a recurring theme every time Biden gets behind a mic, and this also is one of my like favorite videos of all time. It literally cracks me up every time I see it. So here we go.
I have no idea what the fuck. 90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
It's true. Joe Biden be tripping. That fool be tripping.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
That TikTok gave me just life the other day. That shit was too fucking funny, dude. I was wheezing.
The best
But
part is the two dudes reacting to
Yeah,
it. That's
yeah,
like 100%.
100%.
The best part.
It's just it's so goddamn funny, dude. Like it's so true.
I have
That dude
prob-
gets up in front of the mic and you're just like, what the fuck did you just say? Like he has no idea.
And 1 billion Americans are vaccinated. It's like, oh, what did you
Cool.
just say?
I guess. Like what the fuck? But yeah, so that was the funny one. This one is a little bit more serious, I guess. But it just shows like kind of also like he has no idea like what he's talking about and has no fucking clue like that his so far his first year in office has been a fucking shit show and he hasn't done anything. So here goes the second one.
Did you overpromise to the American public what you could achieve in your first year in office? And how do you plan to course correct going forward?
Why are you such an optimist? Look, I didn't overpromise, but I have probably outperformed what anybody thought would happen. The fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where we have made enormous progress.
He said he's outperformed expectations. Unless those expectations were that he would have a 0% approval rating, he has not outperformed expectations.
Did you overpromise to the
So like that was the thing. It was a press conference. That guy asked, like you saw, did you overpromise to the American people? And he was like, no, I outperformed. Show me where you outperformed, Joe. Show me where. Because inflation is at an all-time high. Unemployment is fucking skyrocketing. You haven't done really fucking anything to like help anything except maybe the vaccines, like that Alex was talking about. Like, oh, all these people are vaccinated. Like, okay, cool, but you've almost made it like fucking impossible for people to like not be vaccinated if they don't feel comfortable with it because they can't fucking go anywhere and do anything in all these states without a vaccine card. It's
Which don't forget the vaccine was evil and something that you shouldn't get when the Trump regime was pushing it.
Yeah.
And nowadays it's all Joe Biden's praise.
Yeah,
And
and see, and that's just the shows like how fucking asinine this whole fucking like political thing is because I saw something along those lines the other day. It was like all the people were fucking boohooing the vaccine when Trump was in office, and now that Biden's in office, those same people that were boohooing it are fucking singing its praises.
yeah, dude,
And
because it's
it's just
saving billions of American lives.
but if
You know,
but like Trump was like, yeah, we get vaccinated if you want to get vaccinated. Everybody was like, nope, fuck that. We're not getting vaccinated. Fuck you, you old orange bitch. Like we're not doing anything. And now we've got fucking Sleepy Joe up there who has like 3 fucking brain cells left, struggling for survival. And they're like, yeah, dude, whatever fucking Grandpa Joe says is cool. Like, are you shitting me?
nah, man, nah, it ain't cool. It ain't cool. It ain't. I mean, yeah, like we've talked about before, vaccines are great for people that need it, but at the same time, the only other thing you can talk about or tout is the Build Back Better
Which is
bill,
trash.
which one of the first things to get eliminated from that bill was the regulation of prescription pharmaceutical costs, which, you know, you don't hear about that at all, which is strange, but that's, I mean, obviously it's
So
not
dumb.
strange.
And let me
but
go on another
whatever.
tangent about fucking vaccine cards because I don't know if you might have sent this to me, Alex, or I might have, or to us, or I might have seen it last night while I was fucking falling asleep scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or something. But a 9-year-old just got fucking arrested in New York for going to a museum like on a field trip and he didn't have his vaccine card with him and he couldn't prove that he was vaccinated. So they fucking called the cops on a 9-year-old and he got walked out of the goddamn museum between 2 cops to the back of a cop car. Like, are you shitting me? We're arresting
Yeah, dude.
fucking children now.
Thank God, honestly, we got that 9-year-old out of that museum because think about how many people he might have killed,
Yeah,
you know,
fucking
in
this
that
little
museum
9-year-old
being
fucking
unvaccinated.
bioterrorist is out here just like risking, everyone's life. Like, come on, dude. Leave
Think
the fucking
about
kid alone.
Ben, think about all the lives that were saved by getting that 9-year-old out of that museum and putting him in handcuffs and taking him down to the station because he wasn't vaccinated.
Yeah, and
I mean, clearly
and
being vaccinated will stop the spread of COVID.
yeah,
You know, if you're vaccinated, you cannot spread COVID whatsoever. And if you're 9, it's really dangerous to be unvaccinated because the deaths of 9-year-olds across the nation is rampant with COVID. You know, I mean, look at the demographics. How many people of all of the age groups have died in that 9 to 10 range? I mean, it's crazy. It's so unresponsible for that 9-year-old to be unvaccinated. It's crazy.
yeah.
Crazy. How can a parent let their 9-year-old child, who probably has a higher risk of suffering from myocarditis from the vaccine, how can the parents of that 9-year-old child let him just stroll into a museum and risk spreading COVID, dude? It's
Yeah.
unresponsible. Lock that
It's
9-year-old up, dude. Right call.
fucking
Right call.
it's so fucking frustrating, dude. It's so frustrating. It's not even that
It's
he wasn't vaccinated, it's just that
asinine,
he
dude.
fucking couldn't prove it because he didn't have his vaccine card on him. The kid has been at school for how many fucking weeks? Obviously, fucking like vaccinated because schools fucking require that shit. And then they're just like, oh nope, he can't prove it. Fucking lock him in there. So now this is this it's so different because there's even more layers to this, and I might be reaching on this. I don't want to like reach, and hopefully I don't fucking put my foot in my mouth on this one. But like for context, I guess the kid was it was a little black kid, and with everything as being racially charged as it is in fucking America, like now that kid got arrested by a couple of white cops and walked out of there. So now this dude has a bad taste. More than likely, he's gonna end up with a bad taste in his mouth about cops because fucking got arrested for not having a fucking being able to prove he's vaccinated, and then like now he's and then that narrative's gonna keep going with freaking white on black like police fucking crime or bias or whatever. It's gonna spiral.
Well, we saw that Black lives don't really matter when you're protesting for Black Lives Matter in the middle of a pandemic because everybody has to stay home unless you're protesting for Black Lives Matter. Then you can go out and spread COVID willy-nilly. It's
Yeah.
fine. So clearly these two things are completely different. And it really only matters whether or not it fits the narrative that we're looking to fill.
Yeah.
So in this case, fuck that little black kid. He should not have ever been able to step foot in that museum without proof of vaccination. But wait a minute. We care about young black kids, so now we're putting our foot in our mouth, which it shouldn't matter whether he's white or black or
No, it
anything
shouldn't.
in between. It should. It's so fucking stupid
Yeah, it is.
that
And
the
like
talking heads form this narrative of pretending to care about these young children
yeah.
and putting laws and regulation into place to pretend to care about these young children of this particular cultural group. But when that doesn't fit the narrative, slap some cuffs on him, bro, because he should have never been in this museum in the first place.
Exactly. And I hate to bring up that narrative, but it's whether I brought it up or not, at some point it's coming out. It's gonna get brought out by like that anyway. So it's all fucking asinine and just aggravating. And I am tired of fucking dealing with it. And I think that we should do what freaking Britain just did. And like, I'm not the biggest fucking proponent of Boris Johnson, but at least in this instance, they kind of nailed it. They kind of did what everybody here has been hoping that they fucking would do for forever. So actually, before I get into that, I do want to say hi to Viking Zombie. Hi, welcome back. Glad you're here. So recently this week, Britain had a meeting, I guess, through Parliament and vote and discussions and that kind of stuff, and they decided that they were actually, you know what? Let me see. Ham, would you be able to find the video of, I think it's Boris Johnson announcing that they're done mandating things, COVID-wise? While Haley's looking that up, basically what they did is Boris Johnson was like, we're not renewing the government like mandates and stipulations and things when their time period expires. So once the time period expires for mandated mask wearing, they're not reopening it. You can choose to wear one if you want. You can not wear one if you don't want to. They're not going to require mask mandates in schools and all that other stuff. Essentially, what he said is that they're going to trust the judgment of the British people to do what they feel is in their best interest to keep them safe from COVID, and that all of the government mandates and everything like that are going away. So this is basically the opposite of what's happening in this country. They made the decision during the pandemic for what was in their minds in the best interest of the general populace to keep them safe and healthy. And now, since they're coming to a point where they don't feel like they need to do that anymore, they're giving that power back to the people, which is directly opposite of what's happening here, where the government has continued to keep mandating and telling you what you can and can't do with your freaking health in regards to this pandemic and other stuff. Like, we have states like New York requiring all this shit and the vaccine passports for you to do anything, and if you can't prove it, you're getting arrested. Like, hello, can we, for once in our lives, like, actually take a lesson from somebody else in the world that's doing something right, and then maybe apply that and see how it goes? Is that it, Ham? All right, thank you. Let me pull this up.
This morning, the Cabinet concluded that because of the extraordinary booster campaign, together with the way the public have responded to the Plan B measures, we can return to Plan A in England and allow Plan B regulations to expire. As a result, from the start of Thursday next week, mandatory certification will end. Organisations can, of course, choose to use the NHS COVID pass voluntarily, but we will end the compulsory use of COVID status certification in England. From now on, the government is no longer asking people to work from home. And people should now speak to their employers about arrangements for returning to the office. And having looked at the data carefully, the Cabinet concluded that once regulations lapse, the government will no longer mandate the wearing of face masks anywhere. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, from tomorrow we will no longer require face masks in classrooms, and and the Department for Education will shortly remove national guidance on their use in communal areas. In the country at large, we will continue to suggest the use of face coverings in enclosed or crowded spaces, particularly when you come into contact with people you don't normally meet, but we will trust the judgment of the British people and no longer criminalise anyone who chooses not to wear one. The government will also ease restrictions further on visits to care homes, and my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, will set out plans in the coming days. Mr. Speaker, as we return to Plan A, the House will know that some measures still remain, including those on self-isolation. In particular, it is still a legal requirement for those who have tested positive for COVID to self-isolate. On Monday, we reduced the isolation period to 5 full days with 2 negative tests, and there will soon come a time when we can remove the legal requirement to self-isolate altogether, just as we don't place legal obligations on people to isolate if they have flu. As COVID becomes endemic, we will need to replace legal requirements with advice and guidance, urging people with the virus to be careful and considerate of others. The self-isolation regulations expire on the 24th of March, at which point I very much expect not to renew them. Indeed, were the data to allow, I would like to seek a vote in this House to bring that date forwards.
I'm mixed views on it because I believe that obviously the pandemic isn't necessarily just over, just suddenly like that. Say, for instance, on the tube, definitely.
Right. So there you have it. Britain not renewing all their restrictions. They're not making it a crime anymore to not wear a mask or do anything else. They're literally telling you do it as what's in your best interest, and they're going to treat it basically like you treat the flu, which is what COVID is moving more towards with this Omicron variant. But I support it. Like, there you go. There you have it. Like, the government giving the power back to the people to make the judgment in their own mind what they see best for their own health and safety. I feel like that's an example that we should follow.
Almost like that's what we should have been doing since the very beginning.
One would think.
Have you seen that?
Hey, Zeus, I see you are disagreeing. Please explain to us why you disagree.
Jesus is here, so I want to just thank Jesus for being here because we haven't seen you in a long time, buddy. But thanks for being here. Have you seen that video of the person going outside with the medical mask on, and it's very cold outside, and he's blowing through his mask, and you can see all of the air leaving out around through his mask. And I think what's important to know about the Omicron variant is the contagion level of the Omicron variant. I want to say it's like a 1 to 10 type scale basis, and I might be fucking this all up, so I apologize if this is not exactly accurate, but just say the Omicron variant is like a level 7 on a 1 to 10 type sliding
scale
rating scale. Yeah. And Omicron or Delta before that was like at like a 4, and the original one was at like a 2. So basically what they're saying now is that everyone is going to get Omicron, whether or not you're wearing a mask or not. It really doesn't protect you from getting the virus.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing it. It's like the flu, right? I mean, that's basically what we're living in right now.
Which
you can get your flu shot. Yeah, which is what we've been saying since
the start.
The jump.
Yes, it was going to start out bad, but like we've been saying from the jump, when we've had other doctors and other people on here, the point of the virus, and this is the dead horse that I beat with a stick regularly, is that it was mutate in order to keep the host alive and keep itself alive, so that it can like move forward and like prosper as a virus. So it's going to move from being lethal potentially to very much not lethal, and become more akin to the flu, which the flu is a coronavirus, a type of coronavirus. So it's just going to become as common as the flu.
Yeah, that's the job of a virus, which we've said for a year and a half now. I don't know how long we've been talking about this, but the job of a virus is to spread as rampantly as possible, but as well as keeping the host alive so it has a host to live within. That's the job of a virus. So you're seeing a genetic mutation, quote unquote, fail backwards, which again is the job of a good virus. If it knows what it's doing, it's to keep the host alive. So Omicron, yes, is more contagious, and a mask isn't going to help you against Omicron, unfortunately. And will it kill some people? Potentially, but for the vast majority of people, the symptoms are going to be way worse than the original strain, and it most likely is not going to kill people.
Yeah.
And the Karens out there that get the virus and just decide they have to go to the emergency room as soon as they test positive, Karen, stay home, take some zinc and some vitamin D, and make sure you stay hydrated.
Yeah, literally just stay
And
home,
it
hydrate.
should be fine.
And
Now,
you'll be
if you have
fine.
pre-existing conditions, or especially if you're vaccinated, right? If you catch Omicron and you're vaccinated, you should be completely fine, pre-existing conditions or not. You should be completely fine, which is what we've been saying again from the fucking jump for a year and a half now. It should be fine.
Yeah, it's
But
like I'm
unfortunately,
vaccinated and got Omicron, and I was like head cold for a week, basically is what it felt like, and like threw up once, and then like I was fine, and that was it. Jesus, yes, we're dead serious. There's science to back this up. Like it's yes, people die from the flu every year, and now we're getting to a point now where Omicron is becoming more contagious but less lethal. Are there going to be people that die from this? Yes, there are. Unfortunately, yes. But for the most part, it's going to be people with comorbidities, pre-existing conditions, and that kind of stuff. Like same as like the flu. At this point, what we need to do is stop having the government tell us where we can go, what we can do, and telling us what we can do with our health, and just do what Britain did and give it back to the people so we can make what we feel is the best choice in our health and in our own mind.
sounds right to me.
It's like I don't like.
And I don't want to beat up on anybody because,
Yeah.
like, again, Jesus, we're very glad you're here, and I want you to be here for every single one. And the echo chamber is very important to get out of sometimes. So we want to hear from people
I
who
want
disagree
to
with
hear
us.
why you disagree with this move. I'm genuinely interested on why. On what? Holy snap! Kristen with the sub on the prime. Kristen with the prime sub. She has prime
Thank
sub.
you.
Thanks, Kristen. Much love.
You
Thank
the
you
best.
for the sub. But yeah, no, I'm genuinely interested as to why you think that is not the right move. I don't know, Haley. Do you disagree with any of this?
I've disagreed since you started putting it on the screen.
Oh, you did? You disagree?
Yes.
All right, well then send it. Why? I want to know why.
So the reason why I didn't speak up is, for one, I've been quiet because my internet connection is not stable. So don't want to start speaking and then, get booted.
We'll make do.
Here's my thing. Here is where I believe this is the first time that I can actually say here that the way that we are speaking on this issue is dangerous. Because not a single one of us in this call is an epidemiologist. Like we aren't fully professionals on the topic. So us preaching on public safety is dangerous. And us saying that them, like Britain, just saying fuck it is dangerous because we don't know. We still don't know. And yes, I hear you, like the symptoms are kind of like the flu. And the reason why the flu is manageable is because it has evolved to the point where it is because our bodies have been fighting it with a vaccine over years and years and years and developed. And so like it's kind of like it's just, I don't know how to explain it, but I think us preaching, yes, we've become accustomed to do it like that. It like, I don't know. I think it's just dangerous to speak so intensely about it like that, like saying like just giving it all back to the people and just disregarding the fact that a fuck ton of people died from this shit.
I wouldn't say we're disregarding the fact that a lot of people like died, and I don't know if I would agree with the point of us preaching on it. I think that Alex and I just have very
Not preaching, but yeah, just like
opinions about how it should be handled.
Well, yeah, no, I hear you. I'm not saying preaching. Preaching was a bad term.
No,
preaching was a bad term. But like us putting this information in front of people like this, putting it to a catered one side of it is dangerous. Mainly.
So my counter to that, and I'm glad, like I honestly love the fact that there's a different opinion to be talked about, because Ben and I do agree on a lot of stuff, and it's good to have a difference of opinion. It's very good, very important.
Again, another reason why Haley's on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that she's smart and, you know, all those other things. So
there's multiple reasons.
but at this point in time where the vaccine is so accessible to everyone in the world, correct? And the whole point of the vaccine was to keep people out of the hospital if you do encounter COVID and you do come down with it. So we're reaching to the point now where if you want to be vaccinated, you can be vaccinated. You can go to a free clinic, you can get your vaccine, you don't have to have insurance, you know, blah, blah, blah. And now we're to the point where Omicron is at a spread level, a contagion level, to where masks really aren't going to help you. It really doesn't matter what you do. If you encounter Omicron, you're going to get Omicron. So short of sitting in your house and not leaving and not encountering the outside world, which we've seen can be extremely detrimental for mental health. So sure. What do you do? How do you manage it? I mean,
standard precautions like you do with any other virus.
Yeah.
Right.
So just wash your hands and be a clean person. Cover your mouth when you cough.
So we've been living with the flu for how long? Right. So now we can very much point to the side effects of COVID to the flu, and the flu does kill people and COVID does kill people. It's a bad deal. It's a shitty part of the reality that we live in. But do we lock down everyone in their house and say that you can't leave? And, you know, from a government standpoint, you have to follow XYZ expectations or else you do not have your civil liberties? Or do we give it to the people and say, hey, you need to make the best decision for you and your family and your life? I'm in the camp of saying, hey, you make the best decision for you. If you want to stay locked up inside all day, and if that doesn't affect your mental health, and if you do not need to rely on going into an office for work, God bless you, Godspeed, stay inside. Don't take that risk. Or do we say, hey, you know, make the best decision for yourself? I mean, I just don't see a realistic positive coming from this overlord type mentality to where we're going to control your actions and force you to do things such as getting a vaccine or such as staying home or such as whatever, because we're looking, quote unquote, looking out for your best interest. I don't think that's in the best interest of your average person. I think that the average person should be able to make that decision for themselves.
So though, yes, I do agree with that full-heartedly. I'm gonna touch on the point that Zombie just brought in, because I thought it was a really great point, where she said like she's a proponent for my body, my choice, but also like Americans not caring about the well-being and health of other Americans too. Like, so that's, and I fully feel that. Like, I also am conflicted. Yes, my body, my choice. I am huge on that. But also I do care about my fellow man in general,
so
ish, to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I haven't talked enough.
Okay,
well, yeah. So with that being said, though, like, I also don't see this overlord mentality To be honest, I don't. There's propaganda, yes, on both sides of it. Like fuck the government, fuck what they say. But also there's propaganda for, get the vaccine, blah 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 blah. I lost my train of thought when I tried to jump in on that. I just feel like as individualistic cultures as America is, like, we are one of the only individualistic culture in the entire world where we don't fall in line with, watching out for our elders, where we don't fall in line watching out for other people. Like, we just aren't that culture. So I get it. Like, it's a hard pill to swallow, being told to look out for other people. My room just got increasingly dark. Oh my God. Like, we just aren't that culture. So like, it's hard for us to fall in line with being told what to do, but typically we aren't told what to do. We are just trying, when the government is telling us to go out and do these things and follow these fairly bare minimum requirements, in my opinion, I don't care. Like, if I have to wear a mask at my fucking university or my internship or get the vaccine, because I don't care about getting sick. I care about getting another person sick. I care about getting my dad sick, who works with children with comorbidities at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. Because if he has it, he might show no symptoms and then give it to a child who is dying already. So us being completely complacent in this idea that we are not saving lives with minor inconveniences to our personal healthy lives, like getting a vaccine, like wearing a mask, which I don't care about the vaccine as much as I used to. Like, I had a different viewpoint early on in the pandemic than I do now. But it helps lessen those symptoms, because think of Omicron without people being vaccinated and the high spreadability rate. It's not saying at this point.
My counter to,
I don't know,
to your and Zombie's point of, Americans, not caring about other Americans. That's true. Obviously, like, I'm not gonna fight that. My counter to that is, like, you do what you think is best for you and your family, like we said, and go from there. So you may not give a shit about, like, your other Americans, but then just flip it and internalize it towards yourself and give a shit about your own health and your own family's health. So if you want to go out in the world and you feel that you're not safe to go and do that because you can't trust the rest of the general populace, then do what you think is best in your own mind to prevent you as best you can from catching Omicron or anything like that, and then just run it that way. So if you don't feel it's safe to go out in public, then don't go out in public. Order your groceries, have them delivered, work from home, do whatever else that you think is best for you to, live your life until this comes to a point where it's even, less of an issue and the pandemic finally comes to an actual end. If you want to go out and be in the world and you think that masking up and everything else is good for you and your family, then do it. But and yes, the government is basically put out and been like, you do your basic health and safety things. Wash your hands, cover your mouth, like yada, yada, yada. The point that Alex and I get squirrely on is the fact that they're mandating vaccine passports for you to be able to go out and do fucking anything in certain states. Like, New York is bad about it right now. Like, you literally have to prove vaccination to fucking, like, step outside of your house almost. And
I think it's the point they're trying to protect people, though. I don't think it's meant to be malicious.
No, I know. Then that's what it's not meant to be malicious. I know that, and they're trying, like, to protect people. But with the infection rate of Omicron as high as it is, I got it and I was vaccinated. So, like, at this point, like Alex said, its spreadability is so large right now. It really doesn't matter.
There's a lot to unpack here. And I'm trying to keep all these points in my head. To the point of, like, your dad working with children who are ill, at that point in time, I think that if we're relying on the government to make the best calls for us, then the government should say to your dad, well, then, yeah, if you're working with these sick kids, it's in all of our best interest that you do not leave the house. You do not put yourself.
But then how would he treat the kids?
So you go to work and you go home and you have your groceries delivered and you don't leave the house. You don't encounter anybody that you don't have to, because every person that you encounter is increasing your threat to these children. That would be a fair point to make, correct?
Yeah.
So, but in the same realm, is that fair to your dad, who is providing care to these children and providing care that's needed, but we're also going to make him be a shut-in because of the fact of the work that he's doing? He's going to say, no, fuck that. I don't want to do that. And so now we're looking for someone to fill the role of providing care for these children. I just don't think it's a good situation when you rely on the government, which again, we've talked about things in the past. It would be a completely different conversation if we could look to the past and say the government has always had our best interests at heart. They've never done anything to suggest that they would be interested in anything other than our best interests at heart. And you can't point to that. In fact, there's very few times in history that you can point to the American government solely just having our best interests at heart and not having some sort of fiscal gain to reap from it. Right. And I think that's what we're living in. I think that there's a very clear narrative to where anything other than getting vaccinated is evil or witchcraft. Well, not witchcraft.
Going on a witch hunt for
the witch doctor. Yeah. So don't listen to Joe Rogan. Don't get ivermectin. Don't get hydroxychloroquine. Don't get the monoclonal antibodies. The only way to fight this is the vaccine and wearing a mask. And I just don't think that's true. I genuinely, honestly, as someone who cares about his brother, his neighbor, as much as my own family, I just don't think that that's true. I don't think that's a good way or an accurate way to tackle it. Right. I just don't.
And to Kristen's point that she just put in the chat, she said, I feel like media convincing people that the vaccine will prevent you from spreading COVID has made people less careful, and vaccinated people are still giving people COVID though, but they think they are. And that has been a big problem with all the like media pushing the vaccine that I've had since they started pushing it, is that they're like, stop the spread, stop the spread, stop the spread. But the vaccine doesn't stop the spread. That was never, like, that's never been, which we beat this horse multiple times, that it was never the point. Like, the vaccine's goal was never to stop the spread, because like we discussed that one time, it's not a prophylactic, it's a gene therapy. Its job is to help your immune system, if you catch it, to fight it off better and lessen your symptoms from a bigger likelihood of having it being lethal to you to now being less lethal, and you can fight it off better. Viking said, you guys should watch Don't Look Up and relate back to this topic to movie Netflix. I've heard so much about it. I do need to, we should all three of us, I'll tell Alex this again later, we should all three of us watch that at some point this week and circle back to that.
Hello.
Next week. What's up, Jesus?
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Okay, perfect.
It's great to hear your voice again, Jesus.
Oh, thank you.
Jesus,
I had
welcome.
to jump in. Hi, Haley. Yeah,
Hi.
I had to jump in because I honestly, you guys know that I have a very different point of view.
Yeah.
I like when y'all were showing that video, I saw Haley's reaction. Like, I know she has something else to say. That is
I have many things.
Alex have to say. Yeah. So I'm like, I just kind of have to jump in.
And Jesus, if I can interrupt you for just a second before you jump in, I would like to say that I genuinely love you and everyone with maybe our opinion or differencing of opinions. And it's very important to have differencing opinions in conversations like this, so we don't end up in an echo chamber. So
no,
genuinely, sure, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for jumping on.
No, Sam, I second what Alex is saying very much.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like, you guys know that I I enjoy listening to this, but I do get very heated, so it's kind of
Yeah.
hard for me to just type out 1,000 words a minute.
No, I know. It's I understand completely.
Yeah, and I mean, if I jump into every call, you guys will never stop talking. So,
So I guess we
I
make
kind of have
Jesus a
to.
fixture on the podcast from now on as well. We'll have us two, and then
It's going to be like a
two
4-hour
our two
podcast here.
opponents. That's fine.
Oh, come
Yeah.
on.
Well, I mean, it could be. You never know if it has to be
You
that
have
way. You know.
40 minutes because the Chiefs game is on in 45.
No, you're good. I'm just like I said. I wanted to just kind of touch back on this. One of the reasons why I personally did not agree with what Britain is doing, for example, is because they're kind of at this point they're kind of trying to be a little bit of what Texas did, a year ago, or 2 years ago, whatever it is.
Right.
At this point, saying that people should just do whatever they want to do. They know how to look out for each other, the best way they possibly know how. And the way that I see it, I'm like, it clearly hasn't worked. They've allowed them to do this for so long, and our cases here are still terrible. People are still fucking dying. People are getting berated, left and right at work. And that's why they don't want to go back. And you still have a lot of people who are, constantly, spouting this nonsense about the vaccines not working. Now, the idea that a vaccine is going to stop everything, yeah, it's 100% just not going to do it, but it is going to help. Now, just because the vaccine may not stop the spread, if it keeps you or me out of the fucking hospital where somebody else that needs to be in the hospital can do so, then that's what it's all about. That's how you help other people. It's not so much that the vaccine is going to stop it from spreading forever, but if it keeps 1, 2, 3, 4 people out of the hospital, out of those beds where a cancer patient may need to be, where somebody that was in a car accident needs to be, that's exactly what needs to happen. That's
Right.
why these vaccinations are important.
Yeah, and I'm not saying.
And
Sorry, I'm just gonna interrupt you real quick.
Go
Like
ahead.
I agree with your point there. Like I'm not saying that like the vaccine is bad or anything like that. Like I agree with that. Like what you just said with the vaccines like that. Yes, they're helpful, but I was going like along with what Kristen said is the fact that they pushed it as a way to stop the spread, which is just not true.
Well, yeah, and I mean it's one of those situations where the idea of stopping the spread is what we kind of want to try to get people to, obviously idolize. Having
Yeah.
the vaccine is going to help eventually, but it's a situation where, yeah, you have one person who gets a vaccine, but you still have 10 others that aren't. So it's not going to stop it right away.
Yeah.
We've had the vaccine for what, about a year at this point, maybe a little bit more, to where it's accessible to the general public. And these boosters, for example, are just starting to become the norm. And not everybody has gotten them. I personally, just this past what was it, week and a half, like I got COVID
Yeah.
at home. Like I've literally been at home. You guys know this. Like I don't go out with people. I don't see my friends. But my dad had to go to work, and he brought it back home to us because all his coworkers were sick. And he's one of those people that doesn't believe in masking up. He doesn't believe in social distancing. So he brought it home to me, my mom, and my brother. And 3 of us are vaccinated, but my brother isn't because he's a vaccine skeptic. He's one of those people that believes in the vaccine conspiracies.
Mhm.
So he is not vaccinated. So the entire week, like I was over here worried about him, not so much me because I am vaccinated, but even I myself being vaccinated still got every single symptom that's been listed there. Be almost like 1 per day.
Yeah.
I
Nope.
got the
I was
headaches, I
the
got the
same.
cough, like it was awful.
Yeah.
So the way that I see that situation is like it reached me because of the selfishness of somebody else. Like I had been over here for almost 2 years, quote unquote, quarantining, trying to stay away from as many of my friends who have kids as possible, and it still reached me. Like what is it doing out there to the people who can't quarantine, who do have to go back to work? Alex, for example, you said that if you feel like you're sick, you don't have to go to work, work at home and stuff like that, have those arrangements made for you to work at home. There are literally like 80% of this fucking country, cannot work from home. Most of these jobs, you have to go to the office. You have to, be in an environment exposed to other people, like if you work at HEB, if you work at Walmart, if you work at Target, the essential workers who cannot work from home, what do we do to protect them? They don't have the option to sit at home with a computer and be on Zoom all fucking day.
Well,
excuse my language.
No, you're good.
no, I think the unfortunate part of this virus is especially right now, the part of the virus that we're living in with the Omicron variant spreading, is that unfortunately there's not a lot that you can do to stop people from getting it right now. It's the unfortunate part of the mutation of this virus that the CDC just said, basically, if you're wearing a cloth mask, you're basically wearing a facial decoration. And it's like, what the fuck? We were told for a year and a half that you have to wear a mask, and 90% of the masks that you would see inside of your HEBs or Targets or whatever were cloth masks. So we've been living this reality for so long, but what is it actually accomplishing?
Research development goes over time, though, too.
Yeah, no, correct. I'm not saying that it's you guys know that I don't trust the government more than anybody else, but I don't think that part of, wearing a cloth mask is malicious. I think we're getting to a point though where we're starting to realize that there's just not a whole lot we can do right now, today, 4:36 Central Standard Time, me sitting in Omaha, Nebraska. I just don't think that there's a lot that you can do to stop this spread of this virus. And it sucks, but it's the unfortunate truth, and to mandate people into getting a vaccine that is not going to help your neighbor whatsoever from getting or not getting the virus. I just don't see the need or the necessity for telling someone that they have to do something to be able to go into a grocery store or a museum or what have you. I think because very rarely does the government get power and then decide to give it back to you.
Yeah.
Very rarely do they say, hey, you have to do X, Y, and Z to do X, Y, and Z. And then they say after a while, well, you know what? You're right. We're just going to go ahead and release that power back to you. How do people in power stay in power? It's by keeping the power, right? So you enter into these slippery slopes where we all sitting on this conversation right now. I know Jesus, I know Haley, I know Ben, I know myself. None of us want to put our neighbors at risk. None of us want anyone to die from this virus. Genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I don't want anyone to die. We've talked about it a lot in other cases. You never celebrate the loss of life. I'm willing to do what I have to do or what I need to do to keep my neighbors as safe as possible. But being mandated to do something that is not accomplishing that goal starts to get me down this rabbit hole of like, what is really the end goal here? Is it really about keeping people safe? Or is it about putting restrictions on the general population that we now have and we know we don't have to give back? Is, I guess, the best way that I can summarize why I'm hesitant about all of these restrictions and mandates and controlling populations to the point where if you don't fall in line and do what we say that you have to do, you're not going to be able to go to the store or go to the museum or so on and so forth.
Right, which was the underlying point I was getting at, was showing what Britain was doing was the fact that they're a government and a group of people in power that were not taking the power that they got from this and holding on to it. It's one of those rare instances where they were like, okay, now it's going to go back to the people and we're going to trust them to do what's in their best interest, which is completely opposite of what's happening in our country.
Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, you all speak about all these mandates and all these restrictions, but I'm like, what exactly has really been taken away from a lot of people? Because, for example, here in Texas, restrictions were virtually non-existent. We had
same in Tennessee.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry,
sorry, it's like, y'all are seeming to complain about the fact that we had, one period where we had an actual lockdown. When we tried to do something at the beginning. And, it kind of helped a little bit in the beginning. Obviously, I'm pretty sure we would have had a lot more deaths had it not happened. But ever since then, like, people have been fighting against quote unquote restrictions and regulations and mandates. But I'm like, where have these fucking things been? Because I don't see them.
Exactly. So
like,
that's
I still see enough people Like I still see enough people fighting back against all this stuff, so they're not doing it. You know,
Right.
so what exactly have you been living under? What oppression have you been living under? How many people have come to your fucking house with guns and told you not to leave? It just is not happening here the way that you think it has been happening. It has happened this way in other parts of the world. I'm sure like Australia and stuff like that probably
Yeah.
had a little bit tougher than we did.
Australia had it
But
bad. So the reason like that you're not seeing it and that Tennessee didn't see it is because there's still enough checks and balances left with the states' rights and states being able to govern things how they see fit through the state government. Is their kind of like that's the counter to the federal government like kind of mandating these things. What Alex and I think what we're getting at is the fact that there are enough states that are kind of falling in line with what the government's mandating that eventually that's going to snowball and then the government is just going to start overriding a lot of things and taking power where they can grab it. Now
okay, but
Texas is going to be one
again,
of those pockets of like states that is going to be like a son of a bitch for the government to try and
Can,
roll in there and do something about it.
right, but this is just kind of the same like talking point that a lot of like Republicans, for example, have had for a long time about what the leftists want to do and what Democrats want to do. You know, once they get into power, it's like they're gonna, you know, pack the courts, they're gonna take your guns, they're gonna do all these things that have never happened. We've had this argument for decades, and it has never happened. So you guys weaponizing, for example, this whole COVID situation, saying that this is what's going to happen, yet we're right here. We're right here in January 2022, and none of it has happened. You know, we're still able to go out. We're still free to not wear a fucking mask if we want to. You know, the government has been the weakest that it has possibly been in any parts of this fucking world because there's so many people here who are willing to continually oppose it. They say that, no, I know best. You are not allowed to fucking dictate. Yet we're the ones who fucking voted to put you in office. So I'm like, what is it? Do you guys trust the people that you're voting for or do you not? You know, because we have a government for a reason. Obviously, if we did not want government, then get rid of it entirely. You know, no Republicans, no Democrats, and let's see exactly how it goes. Because you know what? In Texas, for example, it seems that that is the way that it's going because Greg Abbott did shit to help us here. And you know what?
It was Governor Bill Lee too. He didn't do fucking shit.
Exactly. They didn't do shit. And you know what? We still have cases going up all the fucking time. And it's just not working. But you know, you and Ben, like Alex and Ben, for example, you guys want to continue touting that we have all these restrictions, we have all these mandates that they're going to take over the country, and it hasn't happened. I personally have been hoping that at least 50% of it happens because it might help to end this fucking thing even faster. But it does not happen because there's way too many people that are just not willing to help. Period.
And can I rebuttal on that, Ben? I don't want to.
Yeah, no, go ahead, take it.
There's 2 points in there that I agree with, and I wholeheartedly hear what you're saying because here in Omaha, Nebraska, I'm not living under the regime that, you know, currently Australia or New York is living under. And if I was living in New York, I might have different opinions. But when I see children being dragged into clinics in Australia and screaming that they don't want the vaccine, and a mom or a dad fighting nurses saying, you're not going to give that to my child. But at the same time, they're just dragging them in, kicking and screaming and giving them this vaccine without their consent. That does genuinely cause worry for me because I see it happening somewhere out in the world. And why I speak against it and why I bring it up is because I don't want it happening in Omaha, Nebraska. But if it's happening somewhere out in the world, that lends credence to that policy being instituted that will impact me directly on a day-to-day basis and impact my friends and family and neighbors. And I don't want that to happen. So yes, as of right now, the policies or the regimes that I'm living under in my day-to-day life don't concern me. I'm not worried about what Omaha, Nebraska is doing right now, or what Texas is doing right now, or what Tennessee is doing right now, because it doesn't impact me. But I do pay attention globally because I don't want that trickling in to my reality, my day-to-day life, to where my nephew is being forced to get a vaccine that maybe my brother or obviously he's sick, so you can't really say that he would disagree or agree with. But if my brother says, hey, I don't want my fucking kid getting that shot in his arm, if he chooses to leave his son susceptible to polio, I would disagree with that wholeheartedly, but at the same time, that should be his choice and decision to make. I might not agree with it, but that's the foundation of America. Is I'm not going to force my opinions or my beliefs on you and force you to do something that you do not want to do or that you do not agree with.
Can I
So
pause you
that,
there for just a second?
yeah, no, and
Um,
yeah, go ahead. And I have the second one in my head because I
yeah,
agree with you wholeheartedly on the second one about fuck the Democrats and the Republicans, and they all pander all this stupid bullshit. And if the anti-vaccine narrative wouldn't have been as heavy as it was from the right, we probably wouldn't be living in this situation that we're living in right now. But you have the left saying the only option is the vaccine, and you have the right saying fuck the vaccine. So that leaves all of us in the middle to say, okay, well, what are we going to do? It's kind of pick a side, and it sucks. It's fucking bullshit. That's not the world that we should be living in as Americans. But sorry, Jesus, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
you're okay. So basically, going back to the point of kids and vaccines and schools and stuff like that. If you really think about it, you and me, for example, we went to public school. We've had a vaccine identification card or whatever for 12 years. We had to go get these vaccinations in order to even attend school. Even when I went to college, like they still asked me to go get what was a meningitis or something like that. So I'm like, the vaccines have been part of the daily lives.
And Jesus, but I think the important distinction to make there is that those are prophylactic vaccines, meaning if you get the polio vaccine, you cannot contract polio and bring that into your college. We're not talking about a prophylactic vaccine. We're talking about a gene therapy vaccine that's going to cause you to be less sick, but not necessarily make you not a carrier or being susceptible to being a carrier. We're talking about, we can't lump all of the vaccines into the same category when we talk about this, because if you get a chickenpox vaccine, you're not going to get chickenpox. If you get the polio vaccine, you're not going to get polio. If you get the COVID-19 vaccine, that does not mean that you're not going to get the virus and still be able to spread the virus.
Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still don't want to be sending your children to school where somebody may give them COVID and they may end up dying from it. Like it might be a small number, like I know you guys have said in the past, but a small number is still a number. It's not zero. Those children don't need to die. There is literally no reason for them to, if there is a medicine that is available to hopefully prevent that from happening. So whether it's something that will give them a 0 chance of catching COVID, or just a 10% chance of catching COVID, the vaccine should be introduced as a measure to kind of help mitigate that, because it's available medicine.
Which, if they had worded it exactly how you had said that, Jesus, from the beginning, this conversation probably would not even be happening.
Yeah, probably.
Because that's not how they worded it. They worded it as it was like a prophylactic, where if you have the vaccine, you're not going to contract COVID, and that's where they messed up. If they had said, look, this vaccine, here you go, it's not going to stop you from getting it, but if you get it, it's going to increase your likelihood of living, and your symptoms are going to be much less severe than if you didn't have it. This is why you should get it. Instead of saying, stop the spread, stop the spread, stop the spread, when they knew damn well that it's not going to stop the spread.
But they may have not known that. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's the whole research portion of this, though.
But they knew that from the beginning. There was multiple articles and things put out that say this is the efficacy rate, and efficacy doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. It just means that you have a minimal % chance of catching it with the vaccine. And if you do get it with the vaccine, then you're less likely to have severe symptoms. They knew that from the beginning. That was already out there. Alex and I showed that research on the pod.
Can I respond to Jer Bear real quick too? Because I feel like this is a popular narrative that's out there that's just simply not true. It is somewhat true, but it's not necessarily true. Getting the vaccine lowers your rate of catching the virus and reduces the viral load, lowering your infectious rate and severity of symptoms. It's a vaccine to keep you and your community healthy. So I'll kind of unpack that a little bit, like little by little. getting the vaccine lowers your rate of catching the virus. There's about the strongest studies suggest that there's about an 8% chance that if you get the vaccine, you're not going to catch the virus, which I don't think is necessarily true, understanding how viruses work. I think that 8% of people are probably just asymptomatic and never experience the symptoms, so they never get tested, just knowing how a virus works. And this particular vaccine, because this particular vaccine, again, does not do anything but trick your body into creating spike proteins that think it's the coronavirus. So once you do encounter the coronavirus, your body handles it better, which is great, which for people who would potentially die from COVID, to have this vaccine is important. Agree. Completely agree. It will reduce your viral load. Yes, 100% true. If you have the vaccine and you do encounter COVID, your viral load will be reduced, which is henceforth why you will not be as sick if you encounter COVID after you've been vaccinated, because your viral load is lower. Not amount of the amount of virus antibodies in your system is going to be lower, so on and so forth. It's not going to decrease your infection rate, especially when we're talking about the Omicron variant, where you turn the infectious rate up a couple dials, many dials up from the original strain or the Delta strain, again, to where the CDC has said this, to where it doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, or if you're wearing a mask or if you're not, most people are going to get Omicron. That's just the science. Those are the facts. So again, if you have pre-existing conditions, or if you're worried about the virus, go get the damn vaccine. Go do it. But to tell my 6-year-old, who is a very healthy individual, she's not necessarily my 6-year-old, but she is my fiance's 6-year-old, that to send you to school, you have to have a vaccine, which again, in Omaha, Nebraska, has not been put in place yet. That's not a thing. And my 6-year-old is vaccinated, for that matter. I probably wouldn't have done it if I was bio dad, but you know what? Again, bio dad has every right in the world to decide that that's what's right for his daughter. I didn't squawk about it. I'm not going to say shit about it, because that's his right. I'm not mad about it whatsoever. That's that person's choice. But to say that there's a mandate that in order to function in society, to go to the grocery store, or to the movie theater, to be a person, you must check X, Y, and Z box, whether or not you agree with it or not. And the fact that it's not going to stop the spread with your neighbor. And if anything, it's going to make you asymptomatic. So you're going to go to the movie theater, or you're going to go to the store, and you're going to have it, but you're not going to know it. That would seem to justify the idea that you're actually going to spread it at a higher level if you are vaccinated. I just don't understand the logic. No one has been able to explain it to me in an eloquent enough way that I can come on board with it. I just don't see it at this point in time.
So I think what has honestly been happening, at least from my perspective, with the vaccine, is that I see a lot of people that, they feel that because they have been vaccinated, they no longer have to wear the mask, right? And honestly, it has never really made sense to me, at least, in the past week that I contracted COVID. It never really made sense to me that people thought that way, because I'm like, I had been going out, this entire time, sparingly, obviously. But I mean, I, for example, went to go see Spider-Man multiple times. And the first night was in an absolutely packed theater. And I removed my mask. And honestly, I kind of felt guilty about it, because I'm like, I know better. I know that, yeah, I'm vaccinated, but if somebody is in there still sick, like I could still get sick. The mask may not reduce my chances 100%, but it will reduce it somewhat. And somewhat is honestly sometimes enough. So I think that if people, do get the vaccine, they should still continue to use those measures that we learned at the beginning of this pandemic, which is the social distancing, use your mask, hopefully it's an N95, KN95 mask, wash your hands, all that kind of stuff, because it is still those small little steps that, in my opinion, have helped. Obviously it hasn't stopped everybody from dying because we're close to 1 million people dead, but that number could easily be 2 million, 3 million, and it hasn't been. So, and for example, my family, keeps asking, it's like, oh well, where are all the other sicknesses and stuff like that we didn't have last year? I'm like, well, a lot of these sicknesses didn't happen because most of us were social distancing, most of us were wearing masks, most of us were washing our hands the way that we normally didn't do it before. And my dad also asks, like, oh, why weren't kids dying, the year before? I'm like, well, because they were sent home. They were not exposed to other teachers. They were not exposed to janitorial staff. They were not exposed to other adults that were being irresponsible. That's why kids weren't dying. That's why kids weren't getting sick, because they were being homeschooled. Like, clearly these measures did work, even if it's in a small measure, but they worked,
I don't want to Beauregard this conversation either. So if Ben or Haley, you have input, please tell me to shut up and
No,
let me know.
I'm just we're
but
coming down to the wire on this, so I'm gonna say that we probably wrap this up pretty soon. That way.
But just to respond to that, my question would be, in that case, is why when a personal friend of Anthony Fauci asked Fauci if she should wear a mask on an airline, and he responded to her in an email and said, no, if you're not sick, there's really not a need to wear a mask, which is an email that he sent. It can be traced because at first it was, well, don't wear a mask if you're not sick. And then it was, well, everybody should wear a mask and we should be mandating masks. So why would the head of the pandemic association,
team.
I don't know, whatever, response team, yeah, that's the correct word, why would he say that if wearing masks were actually working and actually helping stop the spread of these illnesses? Why would he say something like that?
Well, I mean, from one thing that I do know about the air, at least in a airplane, is that it is significantly more filtered than anything else. So it is technically a little bit safer. Now, I don't agree that he said that to her, because yes, obviously, if they're going to be setting an example for everybody else, they need to be doing the exact same thing. And on the other side, I mean, just because one person isn't doing it doesn't mean that it didn't work. It's like, you can't just say, oh, well, just because she didn't do it and just because he said that she doesn't have to, that's proof that nothing ever worked over the past few years. That's just not a very good argument.
No, I agree with you. I was genuinely asking the question. It doesn't make much sense to me that the head of the COVID response team would be saying something like that and not have that be scientifically, founded, or that being a scientific response. And to answer Jer Bear, when that email was sent, I believe it was April, potentially, because the shit hit the fan with COVID in March of 2020. And I want to say that email was probably sent in like April or May of 2020.
Oh, I was wrong. It was towards the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was right in the middle of the pandemic. Or not in the middle, sorry, right in the beginning of the pandemic. So I just
funny, like at the beginning of the pandemic, like a lot of people are referencing that situation where it's like, oh, well, you guys remember when they were telling us not to wear masks? I'm like, yeah, at the beginning they were telling us not to wear masks because we didn't have enough masks. That was the situation. It's not that we didn't want to, it's not that we shouldn't, it's that they were literally being saved for the people who were in the hospitals dealing with all the people who were infected that quickly, you know what I mean? So I remember that point, and just like, yeah, you don't have to necessarily wear masks right now, but if you can do so, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't wear a mask for the beginning of it, but then again, I was quarantining. I was not going out. But a lot of people, want to continue mixing up this information. And like, you do understand that from a medical scientific standpoint, the situation changes, and that's our job as adults to change with it, to understand that there's new information presented, to analyze that information and make the best choice at this point in time, not what happened 2 years ago. The situation is different, you know what I mean? And it's not always going to be the same. So yeah, I'm sorry if, we told you not to wear a mask at the beginning, but now we're telling you to wear a mask because the situation has changed.
Well, do you remember at the beginning when people were like taking pictures of the back of Lysol cans and saying it can stop
yeah
the spread or kill COVID germs, and people are like, this is a
Yeah.
fucking coup. This is,
Conspiracy.
this is all biomedical warfare. I think a narrative that gets portrayed a lot is like, we don't know a lot about COVID. This is the first time we've ever dealt with COVID. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the first time we've dealt with this strain.
Yeah,
But we
COVID's been around.
researched. In fact, quite coincidentally, there was a lab in Wuhan that was doing gain of function research on COVID germ cells and on COVID viruses. So to say that we don't know anything about COVID, or this, we're just all so new into this realm of COVID. Yeah,
It's not
this
right,
strain
yeah.
is different, but that's not true. I mean, we were doing gain of function research on COVID bat viruses in a lab in Wuhan. So like, we should have been fairly prepared for this, but it seems oddly strange that when we do get into a pandemic, now all of a sudden we don't know shit about it. We don't know anything about these COVID viruses. That's just blatantly false. I mean, we were doing research on this. We were cultivating different strains of COVID in fucking labs in Wuhan. So how can we just say that we don't know anything about it and just use that as kind of a blanket statement of, well, we might have been wrong, but we were looking out for the general public's best interest. Like, fucking miss me with that, dude. I don't think that's true at all.
I'm going to touch on this final point and then I'll let you guys move on. But for that particular scenario, like I understand that they were researching this, this particular strain and stuff like that. But one thing that I have personally learned, and this kind of, it's a weird thing to relate it to, but it kind of relates to the way that video games almost function nowadays. When people say, it's like, oh my God, you know what, this game, it just came out and it's completely broken. And then the developer comes out and says, oh, it's because, X, Y, and Z happened and we didn't foresee these situations happening. It's the same kind of thing with the virus. You can test for so many different variants and stuff like that within a lab, but when you get it into real world situations, that thing mutates in ways that you didn't expect, because humans are all 1000% different from each other. There is no way for them to have caught every single possible version of this strain of COVID that could have possibly happened. So, it's not so much that I would say that they didn't know anything. It's just that I would say that they just did not know enough. And it's going to be impossible to always know everything. So if adults cannot understand that with every new variant that pops up, if there's new, what do you call it? Not restrictions, but if there's new
guidance.
Yeah, if there's new guidance, dealing with this version, because hey, you know what, over the past couple weeks, over the past couple months that we've seen the strain, this is what we've learned from it, and this is what we can potentially do to kind of help mitigate this particular situation. This is what we have to do, and it's extremely frustrating. Trust me, like I hate having to continuously wear a mask, but it's the one thing that I personally can do, because like Haley said earlier, I'm not a scientist. I can't fix these things for them, but the one thing that I can do is stay away from other people as much as I possibly can within reason, wear a mask, wash my hands, sanitize, all that kind of stuff, and hope for the best eventually. But there's a lot of people who don't think that way, who think that everything is a conspiracy because it just doesn't fit with their lives.
Which is fair, and I'm gonna try and wrap all this up, because Alex has one thing that he's gonna talk on really quick, and then we're gonna end. But again, Jesus, thank you for coming on and sharing your viewpoint and your thoughts. We really do appreciate it. Gerber wanted to make sure, Alex, that you saw his comment about the reason why your infection rate is reduced is because your symptoms are less severe. COVID breathes through an infected person's cough, and if you don't cough less, then you're less infectious.
Well, it's not necessarily the cough; it's your breath, right? Which is essentially what your cough is. So, again, look at those videos of people. There's one in particular that I like probably the most. It's a painter who's wearing 2 N95 masks, and at the end of the day, after spray painting all day, he takes his mask off, and there's paint particles all over the inside of his face. And it's not going to a mask. I'm sorry. I will wear a mask. I wear a mask at work every day because that's the mandate and that's what the owners have decided. And I respect their decision, whatever. I'll wear the mask. But to think that a mask is going to stop you from getting Omicron is just untrue. I wish I could sit here and say, yeah, wear a mask and none of us are going to have to deal with this shit. I genuinely wish I could say that, but I cannot say that in good faith because I just do not think that it's true.
Just to point
And
something out real quick. Sorry, Alex. Just to kind of point something out real quick. One thing that you got to understand about the N95 mask and the way that it stops the virus is that you have a paint particle which is different from a viral particle. They're
paint
not gonna act
particles
the
are
same
larger
way.
than viral particles.
Right, but just because they're getting through doesn't mean that the mask itself is not negating what the particle does to you. So if that virus gets into the mask, it's going to potentially stop it from getting to you. Now, the paint particles obviously are going to behave differently. It's not a virus. The paint is not a virus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, again, I don't fully 100% understand the science behind the mask. I know that it's out there. Like, if you want to research it, you can. But I know that that's a little bit of how it works. The N95 masks are just better at stopping a viral type of particle from going through than anything else.
Right. All right. So last
Gotcha.
thing that I'm going to say on this topic, and then Alex is 1000% going to talk about what happened with him last night. At the end of the day, if we were not participating in gain of function research on this virus in Wuhan, and if safety procedures and everything were followed as they should have been, we wouldn't even be having these conversations right now. At the end of the day, but that's hindsight's 2020. Anyway, moving on. Last night, like Alex mentioned last week, he went to go with his siblings because his brother set this up for them. Went to go see the medium who we interviewed on a podcast. I believe it was last year this summer. Wonderful woman named Emily. She's like we said, self-proclaimed medium, and did readings on our podcast. While we were there, so Alex's brother Max set that up for the siblings to all go to and get read by her, and I'm very interested to hear how that went. So Alex, go ahead.
Man, I'm changing mindsets a lot here. My brain is still on COVID mode, but yeah, no. And again, just to say thanks for Jesus and Jerbear and all of the people who commented. It means a lot to get outside of the echo chamber. I've said that word like 7 times tonight, but to get outside of the echo chamber and make sure that you have differencing of opinions and that you can have those conversations eloquently and that nobody ends up saying, well, you're a racist and piece of shit and I just don't care about what you're saying. So I genuinely do. Thank you very much for being on. So yeah, like Kristen said, she first and foremost, she told me to golf more, which is very important. She said, so let me back up a little bit. She started with tarot cards, which I'm not a big tarot card person or believer. I do genuinely think that people can connect with the outside spiritual realm. But I don't think it necessarily takes cards to do that. So it started with that, and it was very much like even she said at one point in time, I just feel like I'm not like breaking through and connecting with you enough. Picked up a lot on like my anxieties and my depression and how important exercise to me is and that sort of thing. But we finished the night with something that she doesn't typically do, which I don't know if it surprised me, but we basically just kind of opened up and tried to get people that have passed to try to come through and connect with us. And brother, let me tell you, it was like her brain and my brain were connected. It was wild, like wild the way that I was trying to connect with people. And then she would start talking to that person. So when she was on here, she read my grandpa and my dad's side. And I was really trying to like encourage him to come through. And then she started talking about him and like things from my mom's like childhood and shit like that. And then as I was trying to connect to him, like my other grandpa from my dad's side was like trying to nudge his way in. And as that was happening, she was like starting to pick up on him. And then we had a childhood friend that passed like in a freak type accident that we really tried to connect to. And then he came through, and I ended up like connecting to her brother who had passed a long time ago. Like, and then she was telling me that I have these abilities. I'm like, I did not sign up for all this shit, dude. Like, this is wild. But yeah, no, I don't know what happens after we leave this earth, or like where our spirits or whatever, or however that goes, how all that happens. But it was crazy, dude. It was like, I was texting you guys last night. I should have been like voice recording all this shit because it felt like a goddamn whirlwind. And it was crazy, man. Like, I'm 1,000% bought in on her. I
Yeah.
think it was nuts.
I want to have her on again just to see, because it was a really good podcast. Squash, have a good one, buddy. Love you, man. If you need anything, just text me.
I booked another she's coming on the podcast again.
Oh, she is? Perfect. I love it.
Yep. February the 20th.
Okay,
she's
so
coming back on.
There you have it, chat. In about a month, we'll have Emily back on the podcast. We'll get to interview her with Haley now this time. So I'm very interested to see what happens and how our interview goes with her in that month. So mark that on your calendars. That'll be one you don't want to miss.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's crazy. Well, I hope you got like a lot of good shit out of that, Alex. Maybe some closure on some things, or just some insight onto some stuff.
That was the wildest thing, is like, I didn't even go in necessarily, like, even when she was doing the tarot cards for me and all my siblings, she kept saying like, man, all this stuff looks good. Like, I'm at a good spot in my life. Like, I'm engaged to the woman that I love, and like, she has a daughter, that I love dearly, and like, everything's going good. I wasn't necessarily going into it looking for closure, like, man, let's really see if we can, talk to this person or that person. But just the way it all played out was wild, man. Like, I don't know how, unless there's some way that our brains can like connect to each other, and we're just telling each other not bullshit, but like connecting and speaking in some way that is not verbal. I just don't see how it would be feasible any other way. So
it's crazy. Well, I'm glad that went well for you. I'm glad that this podcast went the way that it did. Very, very good podcast, very good episode. Once again, Jesus and everybody else that was in the chat, thank you guys for showing up tonight. Jesus, thank you for being open to coming on the podcast and talking with us again.
Thank you
I
guys for having me
appreciate
on.
you, and I wholeheartedly love that we can have you on, and that nobody is hateful and mean at the end of the day, and we can just have these discussions and talk to each other. And I swear to God, if I'm ever in Texas or on your neck of the woods, we're gonna go like have a beer at a socially distanced bar and and just chit chat. And it doesn't even have to be about anything. We can talk fucking video games and whatnot.
Jesus, you got to come to my wedding, November
Okay.
12th, Omaha.
November 12th?
Yeah, book it. Put it in your calendar right now. Get your ass to my wedding, because that would be so fun.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. All right, guys.
I'll make sure to send you an invite.
Awesome. Actually, before we go,
yeah, go ahead.
What were y'all gonna say about the M&M's thing? I saw it in the title.
So we just said that the whole M&M's thing is freaking stupid, and that we could dedicate so much more like money and resources into much better ways, rather than trying to make M&M's like basically woke for no reason. Because who's offended by a fucking piece of candy?
Dude, honestly, like, I saw Tucker Carlson's segment on it, and I'm like, oh my God, why is this guy still
I saw
talking
that,
about
and like
this?
the video I saw, and that was this person was like, did I just wake up to listening to Tucker Carlson say they wanted to fucking Eminem?
Yeah, I'm like, what?
It's all sorts of weird. It's just another ploy it's gonna end up dividing people more rather than bringing everybody together. It was a giant marketing campaign by friggin' Mars just to sell more candy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when it comes to mascots and stuff like that becoming more quote unquote woke, like, honestly, it's one of those situations where, if it makes somebody else out there who's having a tough time in life feel more accepted, by all means, go ahead.
So I'm
What
not laughing
happened?
at you. I'm laughing at what Gerber just said in the
Oh,
chat, and it fucking has
oh,
sent me. Um,
I just saw.
you guys can read that one. Anyway, with that, appreciate appreciate again Jesus coming on. I appreciate everybody in the chat hanging out and giving us your thoughts and feelings and opinions on everything we were talking about. We will be back again next week. I'm not sure what time yet. Obviously, we are in playoff NFL football, and I am super into it. So, depending on what happens today, um, with the Chiefs will basically determine what time the podcast is next week, but it will be on Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week on Sunday. I think this week, with me being back at work, I neglected to get last week's podcast out, so this week I will do my best to get today's episode and last week's episode out on YouTube in case you missed them or you want to show it to somebody and be like, look at these fucking goons talking about shit. But with that, we love you all very much. Appreciate your continued support. Kristen, thank you for dropping the sub today, and we will see you guys next week. All right. We love all of you, and you guys have a happy and safe week. Okay.
Yep. Bye, everybody.
Love you guys.